another episode of the strive25 podcast, and I've got an awesome guest today, that violin guy, David here from St. Louis, somebody that I've been following for a while, and just pumped to finally get you on board here. And from a standpoint of Strive for 25, we're talking about building wealth. A lot of it's real estate, but also building income streams, try to be able to help somebody save money, be able to get ahead, have options on how to invest. And we talk about 25 meaning saving 25% of your income, which is, a lot, but adjusting your life in a certain way is how people are getting there. So first off, that violin guy, thank you for coming on board.
Yeah, no problem. Happy to be here.
So you're in your early 20s. You've got a full-time job.
Yeah.
You're out there posting amazing content.
Well, I try to at least.
Amazing content. And so TikTok is really where you kind of first got that traction, right?
Yeah, I mean, I can kind of start there if you want me to talk about it. So
yeah,
I do all the social media platforms now. I've expanded to Instagram and stuff now. And eventually I might get into Twitter, but Twitter itself is just a nightmare. So I don't really want to. I'm not super excited about it, but I'll consider it. So I started posting on TikTok back in 2021. I was kind of at a fork in the road in my life where I'm like, do I want to pursue what my passion was, music and stuff, because I was doing soccer full-time at college. And the main problem with like doing a sport in college is it's basically like another job. So I have to go out, practice. We're doing 2-a-days, like I'm getting tired, whatever. And I kind of hit this fork in the road where I was doing this project and my coach was like, well, we have a game this day. And I was like, but I have a project for school and it has to deal with like recording and whatnot. And I was like, well, I had to do the project, and we had a big blow up about it. So I was just, you know what? Soccer has done me real good. I got a college scholarship with it, but I don't really want to go pro. I've never really had the aspirations to go pro. So I think I'm going to go do what I want to do. And it was in April of 2021 where I posted a video saying that I'm going to do this full time. And then I started with 4 videos a day on TikTok for 6 months, I believe. It was wild. I should not have done that. It was an unhumanly amount of content that I was doing every single day. It was 4 videos a day. I think I was posting at 10 a.m. to 2 p.m., 4 p.m., and 7 p.m. I still remember those times because I had to prepare videos the night before to wake up, to post that video, to then do 4 more videos for the next day. It was wild.
and that's why you were still in school.
Correct. And that's why I was still in school. I had my own, well, I moved in with my sister at the time. We had an apartment we were sharing with my sister named Marie and Sophia. And I was in my room. I kind of created a space and I started experimenting with content. And then I really started reading more about like, how do the algorithms work? How does social media work in general? And then I bought one of this creator course. His name's Rob. But I bought his course because I was reading all about people of like, I just wanted someone to watch my content and say, this is what you need to do better. And I was willing to pay just a little bit of money at the time. I think I put maybe $500 total into his course. It's actually pretty reasonable. My biggest amount was like, he offers you an extension. So he's been with me since 10,000 followers, because that's what his course goes up to. I hit 10,000 followers, and then he added like, hey, do you want a $230 extension to go with you to 100,000? So every week he watches my content, it gives me feedback, and then I'm like, okay, I'll work on this. But he's like, how it works in general at that point. And so now that I've been researching different things, how Reels and TikTok works and how YouTube works and all this different like type algorithms that he has taught us in the courses, that I can probably share with a little bit of like here about my general knowledge about it. But yeah, that's kind of where it started. And year and a bit, I think a year and 3 months, I think that's how long I've been doing it, like posting videos every day. So yeah.
Okay, but you said 2021.
2021.
Right? So that's 2 years, right?
Was it 2022?
I think I know when we're talking a while back.
It was 2022.
Yeah,
it was 2022 because I remember I moved 3 times in a year, which was not fun. So I thought like, 2021 was when I moved back to the apartment. Yeah. So it's been a year and 3 months, but yeah, just 2022 then is when it started. Yeah.
So that's a short period of time. We're talking about building a following and building content, because right now you're over 25,000 followers on TikTok.
35.5.
Oh shit.
Yeah. 35.5 thousand.
Okay, so it's been a minute since I've looked.
Yeah,
maybe like 7 minutes.
Well, it just kind of happens like that. Right now, I'm in a pretty like, you have waves where it comes in waves of, you'll get like 2 or 3 videos that do really well, and then you'll have like 10,000 followers in a week or 5,000 followers in a week. And then for like 3 months, it'll be nothing. You'll get like 500 followers in 3 months, and then it'll come in another wave. So, that's just how it works. But yeah.
So the all important question, are you making any money right now?
I mean, yeah, I'm making money from like TikTok, and like I'm working on YouTube, because YouTube is really where the money is made. But TikTok, I don't really make a ton of money off of it. I think I've made maybe about...
You don't have to be specific if you don't want to.
Yeah, no, it's okay. I'll be honest with it, because the one thing that people are like, oh, if you make good content, you get a lot of views, you get a lot of money. That's not the case for TikTok. I was reading research about 𝐂𝐓𝐇, who is like he's a magician / videographer stuff. He does like, it's not real magic tricks, but it's camera tricks that will like fool the audience to subvert their expectations and do something interesting. That's why all his videos do so well. He has the most viewed video on TikTok with like 4 billion views or something like that. And he only made $4 grand from that one video, which is not a lot. And the likelihood of you getting that 4 billion views is so astronomically small for such little profit. If you were to get 4 billion views on YouTube, you would be looking at upwards of probably $40 million plus on that one video. So that's how much money that we're talking here. Like, that's Mr. Beast numbers, and I can talk about him all day. But yeah, it's the platform is not the best for producing, like having money come in just due to ad revenue, and like sponsorships is probably where I've made the most money out on TikTok. I've done a few apps that are like music-based apps, and they're like, oh yeah, you'd be great for that. And all the sponsorships that I've worked with are like super nice to me and whatever. But yeah, TikTok in general is just not very good for creators. And I've always been very vocal about that. I really don't like TikTok and their creator fund and everything, but that's just me. So,
but you mentioned that's one piece of the puzzle, the sponsorship part that you mentioned. Is that something that you reached out to them? Did they reach out to you? Is it you had a website? How did you spark that?
So there's a few different routes. So when it comes to sponsorships, if you have a big enough following and you have like, let's say I had 1 million followers, I'd be getting certain DMs from managers over at companies being like, hey, can you sponsor this product? Can you sponsor that product? I've done like 2 or 3 where they just reach out to me and I'm like, yeah, I can do that. Here's my price. But for in general, if you have a big enough channel of like on YouTube or things like that, like 3-4 million, like 3-4 million subscribers, things like that, you'll get a manager or you'll go with an agency company, because typically what bigger companies like Ridge Wallet or like there's certain like company, NordVPN is another one. They reach out to agencies and are like, hey, do you have a creator that'd be willing to do this? And they're like, here's a pool of creators you can choose from. And then the agency's like, okay, we like this one because NordVPN has everything to do with like stuff online. And like, so they want video game creators. They want type of people who know that their audience are going to be using or playing video games online or watching videos, whatever. So typically they go with like gaming creators for NordVPN because it makes the most sense for their company. Music in general, the sponsorships are very not here and there. I mean, like if you were to get like a big Shure or Bose sponsorship, because those are some big companies that make equipment and things like that. But typically, like you're not going to get sponsorships from like companies who are making music books or like creating violin bows, which I've also seen before. But typically those are very few and far between. So it kind of just depends on where it's coming from. You can build a following from that to do sponsorships, or you can go with an agency or a manager, and that's a completely different ballgame. I'm not even into that yet. I just know they exist.
I definitely want to dig into YouTube, but before we get there, if you were to describe, your content in a couple sentences or however long you want, how would you describe it for listeners that haven't watched it yet? Which also, where can they find you again?
Yeah, so you can find me everywhere at That Violin Guy on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. Those are my 3 main platforms that I'm on right now. So don't go for That Violin Guy and then his name is Matt Shredder. Don't like that guy. We'll talk about that later as well. But don't like that guy. I'm the guy with the little blue logo that says That Violin Guy on it. There you go. My content is generally like, it's just a bunch of jokes and whatever I think is kind of funny and interesting at the time. Something that'll make people just be like, oh, that's funny. If you are in the music world, you'll definitely understand most of my jokes, at least. If you're not in the music world, you're going to be like, what is this guy talking about? Like, this is so weird. It's just because I'm a little bit of a music nerd, and I know that other music nerds like me exist out there, and they'll think that what my little jokes that I post are funny. So that's basically how it works.
Which I love, because like that's one of the things that, you know, I've had to learn, is that you got to find your own tribe. And there's people out there, regardless how crazy your niche or your interest is, there's people out there that love it too. You just gotta get out there.
You gotta find it.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, so you're 21, 22
Correct. So
years
I'm turning
old.
22 this month.
22 years old. Jesus. Okay.
Yeah.
So you're in college.
Not anymore.
Well, you're in college,
correct,
playing a sport, playing
correct,
soccer, thinking about building a digital brand, which is not the norm.
Yeah.
Right. Do you know anybody else in your sphere, your circle, like going back a couple years, that was thinking about that?
Building a digital brand, not so much. I do know a few people. One girl who was in my class, her name's Cameron Bell. She did aerial silks and she posted that on TikTok and stuff. And she has like 200,000 followers on TikTok. Like, she really got some traction going there. She doesn't post as much. I'm not really quite sure why, but there were a few other people who really got some traction on TikTok that I knew, and they were just like, I don't really want to post anymore. Which, from my standpoint, I'm like, why wouldn't you want to do that? Because that's like what I want to do, and I find it really fun and interesting. But some people just like, oh, I like to post some things that I enjoy, and then other people happen to enjoy it, and then they're just, I don't really want to do it anymore. So that's kind of what I was thinking at that point. Was I wanted to kind of, the whole point of me creating my page was kind of a model off of this big artist. His name's Lil Nas X. How he rose to fame was he posted memes on Twitter and just jokes. And then eventually he got some record deal because he started submitting stuff to labels and whatnot. He got some record deal. And then at the record deal, he was like, wouldn't it be funny if I dressed up like a goofy cowboy and rode down the street on the horse, and then we post that on Twitter and it's going to become this huge meme? And it did. So his whole thing kind of started with jokes to promote his music, which is kind of my same mindset and standpoint, is that I'm a writer and a composer, but what I do is not normal in the music sphere. I don't usually use lyrics in my music. It's all just the violin, which has been proven to work before. There's other big violin artists out there, but to get introduced into that sphere is you need to show that others you can create content daily, and that other people are interested in you for who you are and what you're building. So that's kind of my mindset of why I started it to begin with.
That's awesome. Like you mentioned Lil Nas X. Like, we haven't talked about that, but that's something that I have saved on my phone as an article that I saw. I think it was also on Twitter, someone talking about how that was a strategy that went viral. And that's something I looked at probably June of 2022, I think, at the time. It's something that I definitely was inspired by. It helped me kind of push myself out of my comfort zone to come down this road with the podcast and other things too. But 21 years old and thinking, okay, I'm going to do this. I mean, it's a lot of work.
Yeah,
it's a lot of work.
It's a lot of work. But if I'm being completely honest about it, I saw the vision when I was about 16, 17, 18. I was like, I can see the light at the end of the tunnel. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set myself up for success in that way. I do everything myself. So I know my own video editing, I do myself. I know the logo I made myself. I've remade that logo 3 or 4 times. I'm deep into Photoshop, deep into video editing. And now I'm getting onto the back end of, okay, maybe it's time to start thinking about music and getting better at that. So now I'm a sound engineer, and I'm learning with some of the best sound engineers in the area and possibly in the entire nation, because Sam and Rich and all those people that I work with over at Shock City as my full-time job are great. So it's all just kind of layering on top of each other of learning. If I'm not the greatest in the world at Photoshop, but if I can do what I need to do to get by to create my content at a professional level that people are like, yeah, it looks like a professional did that, then I'm happy with it. So, yeah.
I mean, that's something that I've learned more and more over time with this whole process, is like, you do something, gets it good enough, and then like, okay, shit, I'm going to go learn this next thing. And It's like 6 months ago or 12 months ago, however long, like I couldn't even imagine. Like, I look back on the podcast thing, it's like, that was never a dream of mine. It was never something that was on my vision board, nothing like that. And it just, last year I got the inspiration and started going down this path of social media, and then podcasting came into my forefront. I just did it. It's like, I could have never even imagined sitting here doing a podcast, but I've learned so many things along the way.
Right.
And like, it makes other things that I'm doing
way more valuable and much easier. I think that, especially within the musician space, my instrument is such a weird thing. I'm going to talk about the violin here for a second, of just everyone just wants to be the best violinist in the entire world. They want to be like Hilary Hahn or Joshua Bell, who are so insanely good at the violin. The only way that you can achieve that, though, is if you practice for like 8 hours a day. Now, from my perspective, I don't enjoy practicing 8 hours a day. I love the violin with all my heart and soul. I love writing music, but I don't enjoy sitting and playing scales and doing technical work for 8 hours a day. That's just not who I am. So when people, especially within my sphere, get deep into the classical world talking about, oh, they can play Tchaikovsky, they can play Paganini, they can play all these extremely advanced, difficult violin pieces, and then they don't understand on the backside what I'm actually doing in the background is I'm writing stuff, I'm working in Pro Tools, I'm doing all this. And it's not just I wake up, I play the violin, I shoot a video. It is, there's a lot more going on behind the scenes than just what I'm putting on in the front. And it's because of those things that we learn along the way that I'm not just a violin player, but I can also run sound for you. I can also do video for you. I can also do Photoshop. I can shoot pictures, I can shoot video. All those things are culminating into, if I wanted to get into the music industry or whatever industry that you're thinking about getting in, you might not be the best in the entire world at it. But what you can do is you can do something that someone else can't. They might be better at you than one thing, but I can do 5 more things that are equally as valuable, if not more valuable, than the person who's really good at one thing. So some people say a jack of all trades is a master of none. I agree with that to a certain point, but then the jack of all trades is going to get the job done no matter what, when the master can only get done what the master knows how to do. So
yeah, and it's like, I'm in the mortgage industry and I can't tell you how many times the markets have changed and I've had to reinvent myself and do and learn different things, talking about all those different skills you have.
Yeah,
you may have an audience or opportunity or, you know, this thing and that thing, and
right.
You can flip and you can adjust and find the right audience that's going to fill the need and continue to generate income. Because at the end of the day, right, like part of this is how do we build ourselves up and get more time back? If you can make enough money on with passive income,
exactly,
and get more time back, that's what fuels me, or a lot of what I'm trying to do. It's like, if you can just figure it out, right, find the right audience.
Right.
So kind of going back to YouTube for a second, I didn't even know who Mr. Beast was probably until 15 months ago.
Right.
Because I just, in my industry, I live under a rock. Like we're just so damn busy, right? I'm getting phone calls on a Friday at 11 o'clock working on a file, our pre-approval.
Which makes sense for certain things. And that's another point that I try to harp on as well. If you're going to be into social media, try to find people who do stuff like you do, and just base your stuff of, why do they get more views than me? And it's not a competition, but at the end of the day, whoever is pulling in more views or having more engagement, more likes or whatever, they're doing something better than you, or for a reason why. You have to figure that out. And it's not more of a competitive thing. It's more like how do I better myself? If I keep using myself as the standard, I'm going to hit a wall eventually and just not get better. But if I use someone else as a standard, then what I have to do is I have to start climbing a mountain to get to their point. So if you're in the social media space, I would say try and learn as much as you can. I've met so many people going on Instagram. I didn't realize how big the violin community was on Instagram until I got there. And then there's like 30 people who are like, oh my gosh, you're the guy from TikTok. When were you going to come to Instagram? We didn't know. I was like, I have no idea who you are, but you have 15,000 followers. So clearly you're doing something right. And like, you know, so it's just learning about different spaces, I guess. So that's important as well.
Yeah. And it's like, I didn't know anything about a podcast. I just started learning and researching and doing and learning. And it's like, I can't remember who said this, but I think maybe it was 𝐂𝐓𝐍𝐄𝐂𝐓. Like, if you want to be good at something, you have to start out being shitty, and you have to be okay with being shitty at the beginning. And it's like, one of the quotes that I saw from Mr. Beast was, you know, because he's probably worth multiple billions of dollars.
Oh yeah.
Right. And he didn't get more than 1,000 views on any video until he was 7 years into his journey.
Yep.
Which is a long time.
That's a long time.
Now, those were different times, and now things have changed a lot in terms of how the general public sees social media, how much people are engaged, and it's top of the mind from so many different platforms. So different times, but 7 years, that's a long time. But he loved it and he kept on going.
Yeah. He saw a vision that he wanted to be, probably not wanted to be the number one, but he wanted to make a living and do what he loved, which was making videos. So Mr. Beast is an interesting person in general, because if you look back 7 years ago on YouTube, the biggest YouTuber out there was PewDiePie. And PewDiePie, Mr. Beast was doing exactly what PewDiePie was doing. So it made sense. Like, why is PewDiePie getting more views than Mr. Beast? Well, he has better quality stuff. He has better this. But as Mr. Beast started learning about stuff and learning about algorithms, he started testing new things of like, he was playing video games, he was doing vlogs, he was doing whatever, until he gave away, like, he got his first sponsorship deal and he said, I'm going to give all the money away because like he didn't really care about money at that point. I don't really know if he knew that it was going to turn views. I think it was just a gamble of like, well, I've seen other people give some stuff away before and that turned a lot of views. So why not I try it with this first thing? And that's kind of where it took off from there. So it wasn't just a matter of fact of emulating whoever was the best at the time. It's the fact that you have to see everything around you and be like, what can I do that's different from the person up top? Because the person up top, everyone knows who they are because they're number one. If you try to emulate someone, all you're doing is you're becoming a bad copy of them. And no one wants to watch a bad copy. I can tell you who Mr. Beast is, but I can't tell you who any Mr. Beast clone is on YouTube because I don't care enough. So,
Right.
Because no one really cares if you're the Mr. Beast clone. They care if you're Mr. Beast. So, yeah.
That's so true. So I guess in your world, who's number one in kind of the music or violin or that world?
Okay. So I've been doing a lot of research on this. I would say currently number one within my violin space is a guy named Rob Lands in the YouTube space. For the number one person that I kind of want to do, because I also am a performer. If you didn't, you probably didn't know this, but how do I say this? I've been playing violin since I was 3, but when I was 6 years old, I started doing magic shows with my family because we did magic shows together. You just have to accept that's what I did. It's a little bit weird, but it's true. So I started doing magic shows, and then I started playing violin on stage with my family while they were doing a magic trick or something like that. And then I started getting deep into Lindsey Sterling. She's probably the number one creator in the space. She has more monthly listeners than anyone else in like the classical music and violin space and whatever. So if there's anyone who I would like, if I would say if I can switch places with one person in the world and be instantly happy, it'd be her. But fact of life is that I'm not her. So I have to find something different, but still kind of the same, but kind of different, because if that's kind of what I want to do is go on tour, play big concerts, whatever that she does, then I have to do something and find an interesting way about it, which is actually what I'm working on with my next couple of songs coming out. Is I'm doing a new sound that no one's ever heard before when it comes to like classical music and violin. And it's not really classical music, but that's what the billboards like classify us as. They classify violinist and instrumentalist as classical musicians, which I think is interesting. But that's kind of the one person I would say is up top there. The second most popular person, her name's Mia Amoso, and she does electric violin stuff exactly like Lindsey Sterling. But the only reason why I put her at number 2 as of right now is because in like 6 months, she gained 1 million followers doing like her electric violin stuff and things like that. And I can talk more about her. I know kind of everyone within the space, but those what I would say would be the top 3 or top 4 people right now within my space. Rob Lands does a little bit more comedy sketches that I do. He goes on Omegle and plays violin for people there, and people enjoy that and they watch it on YouTube. So I would say in my current space right now, Rob Lands would be number 1. But if the people who I actually want to go become, I would say Lindsey Sterling.
Okay. You mentioned kind of your own stuff and this new sound that you're working on. Like in theory, for viewers out there, where would they find some of this stuff? Would it be on which channel, or would they find it down the road?
See, that's a great question because I'm not sure yet.
Okay.
As I'm getting deeper and deeper into the music industry, and I'm starting to go down this rabbit hole now, talking about record labels and like how you actually make money in the industry. Of how does one go about my specific style of music, of instrumental, classical. Not very many people like just magically wander into the space, if that makes sense. And here's my hope is that I'm going to release a couple of songs, which I'm going to do something called the waterfall method in the music industry space, where I'm going to release a single and then an EP with 2 songs on top of that. So in total, I'll release 4 songs. Then I have a couple of contexts that I need to be like, how do I submit demos to labels? How do I do that? And then they're going to be like, well, you got to do this and this. And I'm going to be like, okay, that's what I have to do next. So probably it will be on YouTube and SoundCloud for sure. I'm not sure if I'll release them on Spotify, because Spotify, itself is a monster and you'll probably never find the music there. But Spotify is so overblown and whatever. But if my fans or viewers demanded that I release it on Spotify or Apple Music or YouTube Music or whatever, I would probably end up doing that on my own time, because I do have like a DistroKid license and I have a technical company named TVG Productions that will go under the LC and I'll be copyright protected, whatnot. But I'm not quite sure yet. That's my genuine answer. Stay tuned on my Instagram and all that stuff for more details when it comes out. So, because it's going to take me a few months. Writing music takes time. So, yeah.
So the YouTube part, kind of where are you at this point with that process? And
so, yeah, no, I'm doing more shorts on YouTube. I'm sitting at about 5,000 subscribers there. And when I get to 5,000 subs, I'm going to release a long form video thanking everyone for their support and whatnot. But I recently released a video with me doing a cover of one of the songs that I really enjoy. It's called Running by an F. And the original reason why I made the video is because I was going to do this big arena show in October and I wanted to do a big closer, but no one likes to just sit there and watch a guy play violin for 4 minutes long. So what I was doing is I said, okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take one of the movies that I really like. It's an animated movie. It's called Your Name. Absolutely beautiful story. But I'm going to take it and change it to where I can tell a story through me playing violin. They find it interesting for 4 minutes. I play for 4 minutes. Everyone's happy and emotional at the end. Boom. In the show, I leave. So that was the original intention of it. But then the show got canceled. Now the show's put back on. I'm still not sure if that's going on yet. So I'll still be my closer. But now I've released it on YouTube and it's gotten like 1,000 views and long form content and like 85 hours of watch time, which is like a lot higher than my usual content because it's not shorts, it's long form, which is a completely different beast than like TikTok and short form content and YouTube shorts and whatnot. So when I hit that 5,000 subscriber mark, I'm going to ask my audience, here's the deal. Do you want me to do more violin commentary about the space? Because no one really does that. And that's kind of interesting and different as well. Or would you rather me release my old music, release these videos and kind of be a little bit more creative? Because I don't really know. If people would like to see a little bit more commentary on the space, I'd be happy to do that. If people want to see like new original music videos or music, whatever, I'd be happy to do that too. But it just kind of depends on, you need to ask people. And I have like a group of people that I always ask of like, do you think I should do this or do you think I should do that? Most of the times they're like, yeah, no, your ideas are great. You should do all of it. But sometimes I talk myself out of it because I'm like, I don't really know if that's actually going to work or it's not going to work. I have so many ideas that just sit in my vault where I'm like, probably will never release that, but at least it was a good idea. I learned something out of it, which is another thing when it comes to like social media and stuff in general, is not everything is going to work. Everything, you're going to do something, completely finish it and be like, this is terrible. and then you're going to put it in a back vault and be like, it's not terrible. It's not a failure. What you did throughout this process is you learned how to become more efficient at what you're doing right now. How are you doing videos? How are you shooting videos? What did you learn in the editing process? So anytime that I vault something or be like, I'm not going to release that, I'm not upset about it because I always look at it as like, okay, this was a learning process. I learned something new, or I sharpened the skill. It's never a failure. It's always just I learned something. So
that mindset I've talked about a lot because there was a gentleman that we had on the podcast a while back. His name's Alex Jacobs, software guy, and he had a couple of projects he was working on. Long story short, like the two projects didn't work out and they didn't like launch as the startup expected. And it's like spend a long time on a project and doesn't go as expected. It's like, okay, you can be upset about it, you get down and let that get you into a bad mental space. And he had a full-time job and it's like, okay, well, in the same time, I also got better at what I was doing. I was able to get a promotion in my job. And so I'm making more money and better at what I do and blah, blah, blah. Like took it as a positive. And so like, for me personally, like I know I'm in that, I've had to really be intentional about looking at it from that positive standpoint and letting the negativity kind of pull you down when you don't have a failure. So like, for you personally, is that something that you just automatically, that's how you think, or something you had to work on along the way?
Okay. It kind of goes in waves. Sometimes you really have to take a break from the headspace of social media and whatnot, because I will get way too invested in the views, and I know I will. I know I will, which is fine, because what you're doing is you're using the views to measure a metric of you being successful or not. And if I get too sucked into that headspace, I'm like, okay, I have to take a week. I have to step back, take a week. It'll be fine. I come back a week later and be like, okay, we go back to the grind. We go back to the grindstone. We keep doing the same thing, sharpen our skill. It's okay. It's going to be just fine. Sometimes you just need to take 3 or 4 days and be like, okay, we know we're getting frustrated, but that's okay because we're still learning stuff. And it's just a constant, I'll push for 4 months and be like, okay, I need a break. I'm feeling burnt out, which is another thing. Or, okay, I need a break. I'm getting too frustrated because none of this is working. So, yeah.
Okay. So on your profiles and all the things you have, do you have any guides or tools that you give or sell?
That I give or sell, I do not so far. I'm thinking about launching another line of merch. I launched my first line of merch back in 2022 when I was still operating out of my dorm room, and I made like $500 from that. So like you can make passive income that way of like designing t-shirts and stuff, which you'll also be able to do because you know how Photoshop works and it all kind of translates over. So I don't have anything live right now that you can like purchase, but those will come. Like the reason why I made $500 at the time was because I was like, okay, this is a limited time thing right before Christmas. Here's your stuff, go get it. And people went out and got it. And I'd be like, okay, I'm closing it. And then people are like, oh man, I missed out. I'm like, you'll get the next one. So I don't have anything live on there right now that you can specifically get, but I'm thinking about doing a couple of different things there, but it just takes time. And sometimes I'm like, I would rather focus on creating the content than creating like a shop or merch or whatever, which wouldn't take me too long now because I've done it before, but it's just a balancing act so far right now. So
yeah, I mean, I'm kind of on the same page. I don't have the following that you do by a long shot, but like in theory, I could be putting a couple things out there. But like building an email list, people are building landing pages and giving away free one pager type of thing and pulling in their email list and just continue to build their following in that way. Like if I said, hey, you know what, like, can you produce a 1 or 2 page social media how-to guide? Probably would take you like what?
It would take me, well, actually,
A couple days.
less than that, because the company that I work for is Shock City Studios. They were thinking about launching a Shock City school, and Doug, who's the owner of the entire thing, wanted me to do social media classes as like part of it. So we would do content creation, which is I would show you how to shoot the camera. Why do I do different angles here? How long is the optimal time of you watching from one spot before changing it? Like whatever, I would teach people how to do that. But in that process, I wrote like a 7-week course of like, okay, this is how the algorithm works. This is how we're going to apply this here. This is who you need to look for. This is how trends work. This is how you need to watch this. When is the best what is the best times to post? What are the best hashtags? Like those are all things that I've learned and I've put in that course. So actually I could probably release that tomorrow, but I want to save that just in case Doug ever does launch the school. I hope he does, but it's one of those things where I'll hold on to that in my back pocket for later. So yeah.
Yeah. And part of the reason I asked that question is like, there's this race for some of these, big names out there, like a Grant Cardone and Sean Cannell, who I think media is his thing, 𝐂𝐎𝐍𝐄𝐂𝐓.
Yep.
And they're like right here, right now. Like I think 𝐂𝐎𝐍𝐄𝐂𝐓 was the one who started that, at least the person that I saw. Like he had a book that was $3 out there on Amazon, and it was a $100 million offer. And his thought process was, hey, I've got this company called acquisition.com. My goal and vision of this company is to be able to take somebody with 10 million in revenue and get them to 100 million. And so anybody that's below that, I wanted to give you all the information you need to be able to get there. So that way you're kind of incubating your own like pipeline.
Right.
So that's the first person that I saw just do that and just give as much content away for free. Now I think everyone is kind of following suit with giving away for free.
Yeah. Well, see, that's the interesting thing, because I've been watching this on like, I watch trends and whatever happened of all these gurus go online and be like, hey, buy my course for like $50, whatever. Then so many people do that. But then there are 2 or 3 people out there and be like, I have all the materials for his course that are almost literally identical. Here's it for free. And why people are doing that is because they're trying to dismantle the guru mindset of like these 13-year-old kids who use this fake footage of like Lamborghinis and whatnot, because all the people that are buying these courses for the most part are like 13 to 14-year-olds that think that this is really easy. Like, oh, I'm going to get rich fast. I'm going to have a Lamborghini in 6 months. When in reality, that's not how it works. All it is a giant pyramid scheme and a scam to get you to buy their course to then go promote their stuff, which I can actually talk about as well, about what happened with why Andrew Tate became so popular so fast, which is actually the same process that he did. So it's just that's why those people are giving those away for free, which are great resources. And they are, for the most part, all true. You do have to know, though, when you get like those resources and stuff, is that this could change in 24 hours, depending on if the platform gets an update, or if a different trend comes to the front, or if there's another giant social media rise like Mr. Beast. We have like Mr. Beast 3 that comes up and he does something completely different that changes the entire landscape of everything. So it's a fact of, you have to know when you're reading the course, this is what I'm learning and can apply, but I have to start applying it instantly. And I have to start learning how to be active in how can I apply this tomorrow or the next day, and watch the trends that are coming up and watch when there's something shifting in the social media space.
So if you were talking to an aspiring entrepreneur, content creator who literally hasn't started, what would be the first advice or place that you would tell them to go start researching?
I would start researching people who you want to model your content after. That's the first thing. Then I would say start learning how to make videos, as in you have to start making videos. So find someone you want to model after and then start doing it. And then the third thing is, this is the most important step. You've got to be consistent. So you have to, if you want to do videos, the only way that you'll get followers on social media is if you put enough content in, followers will come to you. If you keep putting content in, more people will come to you. There's no cheat code to it. The more you put out, the more people are going to come. It might take a little while, and you're not going to get 1 million views your first time. That's what Mr. B says as well. You're going to get 100 views. They're going to be bad. All your first videos are going to be bad. We all have done it. It's okay. It will be okay. Just keep consistent. It's like going to the gym. You're not going to see gains on your first day, but if you do it 2 times a day, if you go do it 2 times a day, every single day, you will start to see improvement on it. And that's after 1,300 videos in. I still don't know everything. Like, I'm still learning about stuff. I'm still trying to improve things. I'm trying to figure out, should I shoot at this frame rate? Should I shoot at that frame rate? How's my lighting? How can my lighting be better? It's always something that I'm constantly learning, but you're never going to be just instantly good at it. So that's what I would say.
If this wasn't on your daily agenda, if this wasn't a vision of yours to build this entity, this brand, this following, and you were just going in to work every day, could you imagine what would that be like in terms of just your headspace of just going into work and just doing that and not having this other thing that you're building?
Yeah, well, I think I just can't imagine that. I can't imagine like what it's not like to have some of my own projects going on in the background, or being like, okay, I got to get 2 videos done today. I'm waking up early, I'm going and getting it done. Or like, okay, I have this day off of work, whatever, I'm going to crank out 6 videos this day because I know 2 weeks from now I'm going to go on vacation. But while I'm on vacation, no one's going to know because I'm still going to be putting out content, and that mindset of just a constant hustler's mindset of, it needs to become like you're crazy. My mom looks at me like I'm crazy, like, David, you're on TikTok way too much. And I'm like, I know I'm on TikTok way too much, but that's okay, Mom. Just, it's the process. You got to trust the process. Let me do the work. And as I built up here, they start being like, yeah, my son is that violin guy on TikTok. And then like a couple, like 13, 14-year-old boy will be like, oh my gosh, I know that guy. And so when people started recognizing like my content for what it was, my parents were like, okay, he knows what he's doing. Just let him cook, let him keep working, let him work on it. And people are going to think that you're crazy and that it's not going to work. And another Mr. Beast quote I like is, people are going to think at the start that you're crazy until you make it, then you're a genius.
I love that video.
It's like,
I've got it saved.
It's so good. And I'm like, that's true. That is 100% true. So I think it's not only you have to learn how to make content. When you do learn how to make content and things like that, you get into a rhythm. That's okay. Don't always have to be improving your content. Like right now, I mean, like I go on Instagram Reels now for the most part instead of TikTok, because TikTok trends are a little bit goofy. Sometimes there's just no trends on TikTok and it's super dry. And I'm like, these trends are terrible. I'm going somewhere else, which sometimes you have to do. But when I finally find something that I think is interesting or things like that, I'm like, okay, save this, get the videos done. Now time to go work on the music or go compose or go research or do something else. when you get into that natural rhythm of, okay, I got to get these 2 things done today, and you're not just researching like how to do videos better, and you can start researching more of what you want to get into later down the line, it does feel much better, because now that you're putting stuff out, these numbers don't really mean anything. Like, they're important, and I'm still building a following no matter what, but now I'm starting to get into the weeds of really what I want to do in the future. So yeah, that's what I would say to that.
So is the space saturated at this point? If someone's just starting out, is it worth their time?
Yes and no. That's kind of my answer to it. Of, if you can create interesting content that's not the same as everyone else, I would say no. But if you just want to go online, for example, and promote your music and be like, my album's coming out next week, literally so is 900,000 other people online, and they did the exact same thing, of they put in no effort into saying my album's coming out next week. If you drop a video and be like, here I am playing my album for my old teacher or whatever, which is what Jake did, which was one of the things that blew up. He's a triple platinum artist that has, I call him the one-hit wonder, because I really don't think he's the best musician out there ever, but Golden Hour, the guy that dropped Golden Hour, that's kind of his one-hit wonder.
Ever really know what he went by, because I never heard anybody actually say his name. I just saw it spelled weird.
𝐂𝐓𝐇, but it's called Jake.
Okay.
So
yeah, thank you for verifying that.
It's good.
I didn't know that.
No, but that's how he did his stuff. That's how he promoted his one song, was, I'm playing the song for my old teacher, playing my song for my other old teacher, playing them for the student. That's interesting. It's not just a go check out my song. It is, here's the song that you guys should all go check out, but also here's the reaction to it. So it's a balance of, if you want to get into the space and do something, then you have to do something a little bit new. And that'll take time of you creating videos until you kind of figure out your style of video. I kind of model my videos off of this kid. His name's Robert the Weirdo. He has 1 million followers. And why I model all my stuff kind of off his content is because he's younger than me, and he has that younger audience that I know as I get older, I'm going to need to tap into even younger creators to kind of base my ideas off of, because as I get older, I know that I'm going to fall out of touch with certain things that are happening with like what the kids are following online. I can follow it as much as I want, but like, again, I'm still going to miss some things here and there. So I always try and model my content off of people who are younger than me and have different ideas. So that's kind of another like tip that I would always say to people, be like, don't be afraid to look at the kids and see what they're doing and see what's popular there, because they're the ones probably who's consuming the content the most.
Totally. And it's like, okay, I'm 40. I just turned 40 this year, and I just started my journey last year. And I feel like, especially Facebook, where the people on Facebook are typically your older generation than the other platforms.
Right.
And Facebook wants people to spend time on their platform. And I still feel like people our age, if you want to build a following, if you want to be able to add value to the people around you, there's still space. There's still an opportunity,
right,
if you do it the right way.
Well, and something for like your content personally, I would look at thinking about is specifically going LinkedIn is another interesting one. There's this guy on, he's the senator from North Carolina. It's like something James. I don't remember his name. He's a Democratic senator from North Carolina, but he just sits in front of the camera and says, this is what we did in Congress, which I think is interesting, because like I can vote now. And so does all the other like 25-year-old and olders, because no one just sits in front of the camera and be like, this is what happened in Congress, which is really interesting, because most people in Congress don't understand that's what people actually want to hear.
Right.
So if this guy were to run for president tomorrow, I guarantee you he would have every single person's vote from my age group, probably up to 35. But that's just because he's like, here's what's happening. And sometimes people just want to know that. So it just kind of depends on where do you think your target audience would be. For like your content, you're 40, I would say that your target audience would probably be on Facebook and probably on LinkedIn and stuff, because like you're here, Strive 25, you're at a mortgage place, people are going to be interested on LinkedIn. Now, I can't tell you how to create content for LinkedIn. I know that it exists. I know that it exists because my dad was asking me questions about the same sort of stuff, and I'd be like, I have no idea about LinkedIn, but that's just me. Maybe I need to look into that more. But I would say that's another space that's a little bit different. Facebook is another space that I'm not really deep into, because that's just not my age demographic. So just knowing what platform is for your best age demographic is important as well.
Totally. And kind of going back to, just this drive, you can't imagine not, having this goal, this vision to build your brand, your music, all these same things. When you look around the people in your network or the people, friends, family, cousins, whatever, how would you kind of compare those people in terms of like having something that they're building versus just doing their W job and that's it?
There's always two types. There's two types of mindset that this kind of applies to anything. There's consumer and the creator, especially within the social media space online. There is consumers who just consume content, which is typically 95% of the time what people will say is bad for you. Like, don't do that. It's a bad idea. Don't sit on your phones for 7 hours a day. I agree. But I'm sitting on my phone for 7 hours a day, actively watching, okay, what is this creator doing? And what I mean by actively watching is being like, what's the lighting they're using? What is the trend that they're using? How fast is their camera motion? And when you start to take all these things into factor because you've created content and you start to read deeper in between the lines, you're no longer just consuming, you're learning at the same time you're consuming entertainment, which now you're just kind of getting into a constant cycle of intaking information, then outputting information at the same time. Because when you start to take that in and you start outputting it, then you're just getting better and better at content creation. So when people like in general that are consuming, which are like 85% of people are like consuming instead of creating, don't consider yourself as, okay, I want to sit down and watch TikTok. It's sit down if you have to with a notepad and be like, okay, I'm gonna watch a video. I'm gonna watch it like 3 times over, write down why the video is popular. And sometimes there are going to be reasons that you can't explain. We'll get it. You can get into that later. When you get really down deep in the rabbit hole, like I have, you'll start to understand why certain things are popular and why certain things aren't. But if you start to actively do that, then you can do it instantaneously, which is the most important part. So instead of being on your phone for 7 hours a day, you're on your phone for 7 hours learning, and then you're going to apply that tomorrow.
So has anybody in your circles said, hey, that violin guy's doing some shit?
No.
Maybe I can too.
Yeah.
Like, because the old saying of, you can bring a horse to water, but you can't make them drink it.
Right.
If they're going to do it or they're not, right? But like, sometimes I use the word gravity. Like sometimes you see somebody doing something so cool and so like, okay, and impactful and inspiring, like, well, shit, if he can do it, I can do it.
Right. I think I got my dad kind of into it. He's getting into it now. He actually retired recently from doing stuff at school. But ever since like I started making content and really started getting a little bit of momentum and stuff, he was like, oh, that's interesting. Let me do some more research on that. And as he did more research, he showed me things that I didn't even know about because it's just a different space. Like he said, what if I do stuff more for Facebook or LinkedIn? I'd be like, you're on your own there, buddy. I don't know anything about that. All I can tell you is make content. And that's really the hardest step for people, is just sitting down and being like, okay, I'm gonna make content. It's gonna be bad. It will be okay. It's gonna be bad. It was all bad at the very beginning for some of us, or for most of us, it was really bad. But once you get into a rhythm, then you're gonna feel like, okay, I'm creating some good quality stuff.
Okay, so one person in your network is dug deep,
like dad, or like my dad, and then there are a few other people who have asked me like, how did you gain such a following on that? And my basic answer was just like, make content 2 times a day, every day, no excuses, 2 times a day, every day. And they're like, that's it? And I'm like, that's it. And then they're like, okay. And then they'll read about it a little bit, and then they'll start making content, and then they stop doing it 2 times a day, every day. And I think I've had 4 or 5 people that were at my old college that did that. And a few of them still post like a couple things here and there, but it's not consistently every day. So I think that's like the number one factor between success and failure, is the choice to be like, I don't want to do this today, but I have to. So.
Yeah. I mean, I wasn't sure what your response would be. I figured it would probably be a larger amount of people following and actually doing more, especially with your age demographic. That more people are familiar with it, how to do it, etc. But like me personally, I'll just share this because like I'm 40. I picked up 4-year-old twins. And I started my journey in July of 2022. And I just said, you know what? Like I was reading the book Atomic Habits, and James Clear talks about the 2-minute rule. And it's like, hey, if you want to build a habit, if you want to be able to build this consistency, you have to do it consistently over and over. Yep. And if you're your worst day, you can just do 2 minutes, like, and don't break the chain, then you're going to be on your path to building that habit and ingraining that into your subconscious brain. And so like, that's something that I did. I literally on July 12th, started posting, and I posted every single day. Well, recently I have because I've been on vacation.
Right.
But I built this habit. I just do it. And it's like all the research, all the planning, all the thing I was doing, everything I was doing for this platform was after the kids went down. I'm not a morning person. And I would literally start out turning on a timer for 2 minutes and did a couple things and then turned it off. I'm like, holy shit, this is so weird. Yeah. I did it for 5 days in a row. On the 6th day, I'm like, okay, I need to be doing, like, I'm ready to do longer than that. And then by the second week, once the kids went to sleep at like 8 o'clock or whatever it was, I was like looking forward to logging into my computer and doing some work. And it's like, we get so focused on doing this amazing stuff. It's like, for me personally, how I was able to do it is just, I just got to do one thing every single day. If I can build that consistency every single day, even if it's just one thing, that was enough to get me past my own shit, my own limitations.
Right. And sometimes, especially that, I've like done videos and done stuff. My buddy Sanford, who's a luthier, he does like violins and whatever. He was like, you never want to rush your luthier and be like, here's my $20,000 violin. I want it fixed in 2 days. The luthier understands what he's working with is a $20,000 piece of wood. He doesn't want to take, like, he doesn't want to be there till 3 a.m. in the morning working on this thing because he knows he's going to get tired. He has respect for the instrument. He has respect for the craft. So he's going to take it. He's going to work on it a little bit each day and be like, when he's done, I'm done. Pick it up tomorrow. If we need to work a little bit more tomorrow, that's okay. If we're really not feeling it tomorrow, just a few minutes. And then one day you'll really get that push of motivation and he'll be like, I got this thing done in like 9 hours because I had some time today. I really wanted to take my time and do it. But that's just kind of a natural human thing. And it's okay to a certain point to say, like, I don't want to do content this day. That's okay. But you still have to do the 2 things a day, even if it's terrible, even if it's garbage, and you know that it's bad, still put it out there because you're still doing these 2 things a day. And I've put out videos before where I'm like, that was not my best one. This was definitely not my A material. That's okay. You can take it down later if you need to, but also just putting it out there in general, you know, it'll get you into that gradually. And don't like ignore that, oh, I don't want to do this anymore. Like, it's okay. Sometimes your body's just like, put it down for right now. You can pick it up tomorrow.
Okay. So you mentioned earlier at 16, you knew that you wanted to go down this path. What was the inspiration and what was the mindset? What were you pulling that from?
Well, I always knew that I wanted to like go on stage and perform, but I was like, it's not that simple. How do you build a following to the size? I'm going to just use Lindsey Sterling because that's who I was being into at 16. Not as much anymore because I've like grown up and I've learned different things about music and stuff. But when I was 16, I was like, I want to do what she does. So what does she have that I do not? She has a big following. She's really good at making music videos. She's got really good editors. She's got all this stuff. And I started like literally making a list in my head. You could physically write it down as well of what do they have that you currently do not have? And what are some things that you can work on to get to the point where you have the same things that they have? So that's what I was like, I want to go do what she does. This is how I think I should go do that. So it's just kind of a path. And I'm a pretty spiritual guy. I'm a very big Christian. I went to Missouri Baptist University. I went into worship arts technology. I have a pseudo degree in theology, kind of. I took like 6 theology classes over there. So I understand like the Bible historically and certain things in there. So also just kind of like putting myself into my work of, I don't really like to go out and party and do stuff like that because that's just not who I am. I just want to go sit in my room and work on stuff, which is totally weird. I get it. It's weird, but I would rather do that because I have this vision and I have this dream than to go out and have fun sometimes, which is important to go out and have fun, or else I'll get sucked into it and I just won't come out of my room for 3 days. Like, this is fun for me. I like coming on the podcast and talking about stuff, but it's just a matter of fact of how bad do you really want it? And not like the motivational speaker of like, do you want it so bad that you won't go to sleep over it? Like, you got to sleep. There's a certain balance between obsession and extreme want is what I would call it. So you just got to kind of find that balance for yourself of where do you want to run your race? And it doesn't have to be exactly like the person that you want to become, but you can kind of run your race in a different direction, because I don't want to become the next Lindsey Sterling. I want to become the first that violin guy. And that's going to be a little bit different than her story. So, you know, that's just kind of what I would say.
So let's say you fast forward the clock 6 months. You've got the stuff that you put out there. Following is continuing to grow. And you said, hey, you know what, guys? Come meet me on this date, this location, and I'm going to perform my shit.
Yeah, I could probably do that.
People will come,
People
right?
would come. People will come. Yeah. You also, a nice thing about social media, everything is that you know your demographics. I apparently have a very big demographic in Texas and like the Tennessee area and stuff. So for me personally, I know if I did something here in St. Louis, that'd be cool. But if I also was like, I called someone who had like a bar or something down in Nashville and be like, hey, I'm going to be playing the Devil Went Down to Georgia in Nashville. I guarantee you that bar would be packed that night because so many of my followers love it when I play Devil Went Down to Georgia, and I would just have fun out there. So you just got to kind of know also like where your demographic is, who's going to come, who's not going to come, and things like that as well.
Yeah, you mentioned Spotify earlier too, and I can't remember who the artist was, but there's some older artist that went on a rant about how you can't make any money on Apple, and Apple had pulling all the buttons and like, what is this shit?
Right.
Like so artists, they make money other ways, back to the grind of touring and things like that.
Yeah.
I'm assuming,
Well,
right?
see, if you get into the deep side of like the music business and things like that, we're going to get into labels. So technically speaking, how artists make money is they go to a label and the label says, you're a good songwriter, you're a good musician. Here's what we'll offer you. We'll offer you 2 million over the next 5 years. Now, if I say that to you up front, your immediate reaction is going to be like, oh, snap, I'm getting $2 million. What they don't take into account is that it's over 5 years. So it's really like a longer time period that they're going to lock you into this contract on. And then basically they become your boss of saying, all right, we need this many albums done this day, this many albums done that day. And when you start putting that on Spotify, you're going to get big numbers, either that be through inflation, because record labels do have the ability to push certain companies different directions to inflate your numbers and make you look like you have a lot more streams than you actually do. But what they'll do is they'll take 80% of that revenue that they get from streaming. So as an independent artist, what I get is I get 100% of all my revenue streaming. So like it might only take my songs 10,000 streams to make as much money, if not more money, for a person who goes with a label. Now, that's also a double-edged sword, because what I also want to do is I want to go on tours and things like that, and agencies and managers and whatnot. A label also takes care of all that for you. So they're paying you. They get 80% of all the profit that you bring in from your music videos or like your music, whatever, which in turn you would make more money doing by yourself. But without that label, you're not going to get as much recognition or views or tours that the label would do without you. So it's kind of like a double-edged sword of labels are great, but labels are also not the best. So in the next couple of years, I'm going to personally look at trying to get signed with a label, because in my space, it's very hard to not get any traction without a label. You can definitely do that as an independent artist within like the rap industry or the hip hop industry. That's very possible, but within my specific niche, you definitely need a label backing you. Also, because I'm just not like, I want to make $1 gazillion. So that's just not my thought process. I don't really care. It'd be nice to have like a dream car one day. Like, I guess I want a place to live and a dream car. That'd be like the only two things I want, and tons of violins. That's all I would want. I would spend all my money on violins, maybe a nice car and a house, but not like a mega mansion, like a decent house. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't really care too much about money. I just want to go out and perform and do what I feel like I was put here to do, which is go inspire people to go pick up this old piece of 300-year-old wood and make something interesting out of it. So that's just kind of my thought process of when it comes to labels and like artists and things like that.
Okay. That makes total sense. Okay. So fast forward the clock 5 years, right?
Okay.
You got a big following. Doesn't matter the number. You got a big following.
Okay.
Right. What's the one place that you would spend most of your time? What area would you spend most of your time at?
Probably storyboarding. I would still make my normal daily content. That's probably a little bit goofy. If I get a label deal or anything like that, they would tell me like, hey, don't do this anymore or don't do that. And then I'd probably push back and be like, well, that's stupid, because people like that and people think it's interesting, because if you have a personality behind like just your music and stuff, like there are certain rappers and artists out there, like Drake, for example. He's a weird dude, just a weird dude in general, but people think that's goofy. And then they listen to his music and be like, man, his music is for who he is in person and his music in general, it's just kind of a big difference, and it just doesn't really make a lot of sense. But if you listen to my music and like watch my content, you'd be like, oh, this guy is goofy, but also there's this super creative side of him that wants to tell a story. So that's kind of what I would push back and be like, I want to continue to do like my content creation and stuff. And if I do get a label deal, it'd be really cool. I'd probably be storyboarding music videos, practicing stunts for music videos, writing music, doing sound engineering, talking to producers. That'd probably be what I would like to do in 5 years. It'd be really cool if I could do that all here, because I don't want to go to California and I don't want to go to New York. It'd be cool if I went to Nashville, or like in the future, if neither of those things happened, I'm getting my MBA, I'm getting my master's in business right now. So it'd be really cool if I could go down to, yeah. I'm getting my master's.
You literally don't sleep, do you?
No, I don't.
No, seriously, how many hours of sleep do you get?
I typically stay up till, it depends on the night. If I'm working at the studio, I work like 3:30 to 10, and then I'll go to sleep at like 2, and then I'll wake up at 10 and then work until like 3:30. So
3:30 at night.
3:30 in the afternoon until like 10 p.m.
Till 10 p.m.
And then I go to sleep typically around 2 after I get all my work done and be like, okay, I can sleep now.
Okay.
Then I wake up in the morning. Sometimes I'll have to force myself to get up. Like, it is not uncommon for me to go to bed at 2, wake up at 6, and drive for 4 hours to go meet my family. I've done that twice so far. I won't tell my mom that, but I have done that before.
Okay.
So,
okay. And where's family? Texas or?
Well, okay. Family is down in Branson right now, but my original home was Jeff City. So it's 2 hours away from here, but 4 hours down to Branson. I just drove down there this weekend. So, you know, like I got up early to do that, and I was in bed by like 1 a.m. that day. I woke up at 6, be like, okay, I go down there. But again, just another one of those checklist things of, okay, I have to do that every day, do this every day, do that every day, go to work, go to work.
Is the master stuff, does that come easy? Is it hard for you?
It comes pretty easy. It's not too difficult, especially because I'm learning more and more about business and like the lens of like, okay, if I was a producer at a record label, the more risk you take, the more reward you get, the more money you put in, the more likely that you're going to lose that money. But also, if you do return on investment, you're going to make 3 or 4 times that back, which is the interesting part about labels, of why I would probably, it would be really cool in the next 5 years if I did move down to Nashville and got into producing, because then my job is to take this artist, they sign with the label, then they're given to me as the producer. I go and I listen to their music during their session, whatever. I say, we need to fix this. I work with the engineer. We make it the best we possibly can. Then we present it to our higher ups. They're like, yeah, this sounds good. Let's release it. Then you get a certain cut of that from the label. So the label gets 80%, but because you're the producer of that, you get like half of that. So really you get 40% as the producer. The label gets 40%, artist gets 20%. So that's just how the music business works. So
the producer,
yeah,
that's where the money's at.
Right. That is where the money is at. And
from a risk standpoint,
they take the biggest risk, but they also get the biggest reward as well.
The producer takes the risk.
Correct.
Because in what sense?
Well, they put in like, the label gives the money to a certain point, but also like if the producer finds someone, presents them to the label, and the label is like, okay, here's $20,000, throw in some of your own money or some of your own contract that you have with stake in the company. And if this person does well, then you'll earn that back in dividends. It's like, okay, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. It's a little bit like you're playing with artists of like, I hope this artist does really well, or else me, the producer, doesn't make any money from them. That's how it works. Exactly. Yeah. Well, same thing for like movies as well. That's movies in general. Like you'll see executive producers, whatever. The director is not making all the money. The producers are the ones putting in their pool of money. Of like, Disney is big at that. They have big producers that put in billions of dollars every year to Disney. And Disney's like, okay, here's $250 million from the producers. And then the producers will get the biggest cut of the box office sales, or however much the merch or whatever for the movie sold comes back to them. So they can keep putting in stuff and making more money in return. There will be case scenarios that producers put in a big sum of money into something, it doesn't pan out and they lose it. That's part of the risk reward thing. And that's kind of like all the business in general that we're learning in while I'm getting my master's and things like that. But once I have that business side down, then not only do I understand like how to write music, content creation, and things like that, but then I also know the sound engineering side of everything. So if I go down to Nashville and waltz into a label or things like that, they're like, okay, we'll start you at the low man on the totem pole, but we see that you have your master's in business. We see that you have all these things. This is how the company works. I can hopefully maybe rise up through the ranks there and be a producer for like some big artists out there, which would be really cool. So,
okay. Talking about label, you know, what has to happen? What are the types of things that have to happen, or something very specific that has to happen for you to be able to say, hey, okay, I'm going to bypass that because I've done it on my own. I'm making money on my own. Is it, being able to get a big enough audience to go do a show, make money doing the show? Like, how would that work out to be able to say, hey, I'm going to bypass a label?
So you would probably need, from a general standpoint, I would say you would probably need like a personal producer, because those do exist out there. I know a couple people within the magic world, because again, magic, family, whatever. I know a couple people within the magic world that are like, hey, we'll be your producer for the show in Vegas. And what they'll do is they'll put in $250,000 for the venue, for the management, for everything, for all the sound, whatever you need. And then they're independent. So you kind of have a working contract with them together. And I know that exists out there for musicians as well, but that's not where like the real money is at. The real money is at in the labels putting in money into you. Be like, this video on YouTube, for example, the labels give me $250,000 budget for a music video on YouTube, which isn't unheard of. I put all that into production, whatever. I give it back to the labels. The labels send it off to their contact, and YouTube be like, this is a new video that we're going to put out. We want to try and get it onto trending at YouTube. And the person will be like, I understand what you're saying. Put it out on YouTube. And then they'll get all the ad revenue back from that video, which hopefully will exceed that $250,000 they originally gave into the video. And then once that blows up to a certain point, then they'll give you a manager, and then they'll send you out onto shows. But if you wanted to do like an independent producer, that'd kind of be like a sponsorship for like, like on TV and stuff like that, like sponsored by Budweiser, sponsored by that, be sponsored by or produced by this person. And then you can do it that way as well. That's a little bit harder to do because you have to have really good networking, which is another entirely separate concept of you have to be willing to go out and talk to people and kind of put yourself out there and network and be like, you're going to get this cold call people, cold email people. You're going to get tons of zero responses, but the one or two that you do get, you just got to kind of be like, let's talk a little bit and give me as much info as you can. And then they're going to be like, well, I know this person who knows that person who knows that person. So it's all about just trying to find the best connections that you can and then use that networking to your advantage. So that's what I would say. If you didn't really want a label and you all wanted to do it independent, try and find like an independent producer, things like that. So you're not putting your own money into it. I mean, like you could, but like also there's a certain type of risk that you're putting yourself into it, knowing that the labels have you beat on all sides when it comes to YouTube and Spotify. They get favoritism because they have the most money. So just know that if you do want to do that independent, it is you versus a giant. And in your MMA real world fight arena, you're not going to win that 95% of the time.
So if you just put content out there on YouTube and network on your own, it's going to be a process.
It's going to be an uphill battle the entire time. It is you versus a label, which I guarantee you the label will win every time, just because they have way more resources than you do. That doesn't mean that you give up. They might have more resources, but what do you have? You have more content. So I would just say keep making content until eventually you get that one or two videos that do really well. And then you get networks from different people they saw it on Instagram because it did really well. And they're like, hey, I saw you do this video. That's really interesting. Let's talk. And like, so.
I know we're running out of time here. Last thing. What is that one song that you love, or that you think that you could collaborate, take a piece from and turn it into something special? Like something creative that maybe the mainstream would know or not know. I don't know. But like, if you could put one song out there that you just want to do, what would it be? Or make it creative on your own.
If I'm a creative on my own stuff.
Well, just like, take something and maybe put your own spin on it.
Okay. If I wanted to do like a song with someone big out there, I think I would want to do a song with 𝐂𝐓. He's a really cool guy in general, and his Hope album did really well. And I found like his style of rap to be interesting, especially because I work with like rap artists all the time at Jock City Studios. If I had to put out one song, it'd be really cool to do something with him because he likes the orchestral part and like the classical music, and I love to do that as well. So I'd love to make like a backtrack with him, and then he raps on top of it, and then I do a little fun like solo part in there during the chorus. I don't know. That'd be like my ultimate dream of what I actually want to do. It'd be cool like if I did a collab with Lindsey Sterling, but she's on my bad side right now.
Oh,
but,
shit. Okay.
Yeah.
But if she said to you tomorrow, because of whatever connection you made, all of a sudden, boom, hey, we're going to do this tomorrow. You in or out?
I'd say I'm in. I would say let's do it. But, like, that's just like, that'd be really cool because it's always been something that I've thought was really cool since I was a kid. So, yeah.
Okay. So, 𝐂𝐓, Is there somebody out there that you indirectly or directly know that knows him that you could put something in his ear for a couple of years on the road?
Probably. Okay.
Who
So
would that be? If you could talk to them right now,
this would be a long connection.
what would you say?
Well, Lindsey Sterling is weird because I could definitely do Lindsey Sterling. That's completely plausible because my sister works for 𝐓𝐶𝐓, and 𝐓𝐶𝐓 is a big magician down in Branson. 𝐓𝐶𝐓 has worked with Switchfoot, who has done a collaboration who did something with Lindsey Sterling. So technically speaking, that 6-person rule, I could do it there with Lindsey Sterling, but I've not chosen that route yet.
Okay.
For a more realistic approach, I know my buddy Sam at work. He's a sound engineer who's known. He has a platinum album with DJ Khaled. DJ Khaled probably has a producer over at UA Music or whatever at Capitol Records that knows the person to get in contact with NF over there. So again, 6-person rule.
Okay. I got excited when you said Switchfoot because I literally put this out there. I can't remember if it was Twitter or Facebook. That I posted a picture of me meeting John Foreman in 2014, I think, at the pageant after a show. It was like November, and it was freezing freaking cold. And he sat out there talking to like 15 people after the show.
Yeah.
And they're coming in town in September. And I put it out there like, in a dream world, if every little thing fell into place, I would love to be able to interview him on a podcast and blah, blah, blah.
Right.
That would be like a dream for me. So putting it out there, you just never know.
Yeah, exactly.
You just never know who hears it and who says, you know what, I'm going to help this little guy out. Me being the little guy.
Right.
Okay. I like what you did there. The 6-person rule.
The 6-person rule. Yeah. There was that theory online, and I was like, I don't know how true that is. If you're in an industry and you're like, you definitely want to like know people, especially the music industry, because people like the music industry is so big. No, it's not. It is like very small once you actually get your foot into it, and everyone kind of knows everyone once you really get into it. But yeah, there's a theory online where it takes 6 people to get to the connection that you really want to get. Like, I know my sister who knows 𝐓𝐶𝐓, who knows Switchfoot, who knows Lindsey Sterling. Like, there's 5 people instead of 6.
Are you going to Switchfoot?
I might go to Switchfoot now that you said that they're in town here.
September.
Yeah. Lindsey Sterling was just in town yesterday, so I was at that concert. But yeah.
Oh, you went? Okay.
Yeah, I was at that concert.
Cool.
I was taking notes.
Right?
Literally, I was sitting in the back, hood up, just taking notes the entire time. And at the last song, I was like, okay, last song. And I left.
What venue was it at?
It was at the Music Park in Maryland Heights. It's over by the casino.
Oh,
if you know,
the big one.
yeah,
The big one.
Yeah,
The big one. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Well, not the amphitheater, not the Hollywood amphitheater, but there's one next to it, like at the old ice rink out there, the Blues ice rink.
Yeah,
they convert that into an outdoor theater, which is pretty cool. She's been there twice, but
been there.
yeah.
Okay, cool. All right. Well, I'm gonna have to have you on again because I'm sure there's just gonna be a lot of amazing things happening in the next 6 months, a year, or whatever. So, I just definitely appreciate you taking time out of your day.
Yeah, no
obviously,
problem.
it's a crazy packed day every single day.
Yeah.
That you have going on. But yeah, it's a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to seeing more of your success.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
All right.
Talk.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Strive for 25 podcast.